All right, everybody, here's what we're doing. We got Ohlins shocks for the 2022 Speed Twin. So these are the model 924s, so they're more like the OEM replacement without the piggyback adjusters, or reservoirs rather. Fully adjustable for preload. It's got rebound damping, I mean, has compression, but rebound adjustment. You can also adjust the ride height. And these are made to look more like the stock shocks. So we'll take measurements. I'll speed up certain parts of this video and come back when I'm actually talking and doing something remotely interesting. So yeah, in order to get this started, 10 millimeter clamps for the mufflers. 12 millimeter nut was on the back of that. Just take it out with a ratchet or a wrench, and then this bolt will come out. Muffler slides off. Same on the other side. So 12 millimeter, 10 millimeter, that pulls out, these pull off. That lets you get at these. These are 15 mil on each side. So you get yourself a wrench and then a ratchet. This is an 8 millimeter up here. So get yourself an Allen wrench or. And so what we'll do is we got the front in a wheel chock. We got a back sleeve chock with the latch set so it won't pop out. And then what you want to do is, you know, when you take one of the shocks out, it's going to want to sag a little bit. It might only sag a couple millimeters, depending on where you have the preload set on the other shock. But then these holes might not line up with the replacement shock. So get yourself a floor jack or a scissor jack. Put a board underneath. You obviously don't want to lift by the bottom of the oil pan. You want a board to go across to span both of the frame rails. But do make sure that if you're using an aftermarket oil filter like I am, that you give it just that little bit of clearance, because I've got the oil clamp, the oil filter that has it's a K, or not a K&N, it's the high flow, so that will it sits down just a little bit. I use those so I can safety wire them for track, just like I do with the oil filler. So anyway, I'm going to set this thing up on a little stand here. It's on fisheye. It's on the super wide angle, so maybe a little bit of a fisheye view here. But I'm just going to set this up while I work. We'll speed up certain parts of the video and then come back when I'm talking and we're getting ready to install. But you'll be able to watch the process here. So I'm assuming that's going to be, let's see, does that look about right? Turn on the back screen. Yeah. On super wide, that should work. So, all right, let's get to work. Alright, so I think we're about done. It's hot out here. So there's the new shocks. Mufflers are back on. I'm going to move the jack out from under and then start playing with the preload. We've got our adjustment tool here for the preload. It should be fairly easy. Rebound is on the bottom. I'm going to ballpark it and get it, you know, pretty close. And then we'll have Kent up at GMD CompuTrack set it up around 10 a.m. on Saturday, and then we'll have a nice ride review. Go play in the mountains with it. So we will have sped up the process, but I mean, what was that, 20 minutes? The hardest part about the install is that my jack sucks. It loses pressure very slightly. I need a new one. And so I would raise it up to take the weight so the swing arm would drop a little bit, so the bolt holes would line up. And then as it lost pressure, it would slowly lower the bike. So it was hard enough to find it. It was hard to get it exactly where I wanted and then be able to thread the screw through. So what I ended up doing on this one, it took the longest, was I jacked it up a little bit too far. So it was like a millimeter or two far down. And then as the bike slowly lowered from it dropping pressure, by the time that at some point it lined up, and I was able to quickly throw the thing in there. So those are in. The other tricky part was, you know, they gave you some specific spacers up here. And it's just making sure that spacer is centered. I'm going to go over the instructions once again. I mean, you got the diagram here. It is pretty straightforward to install that. So now that it's mounted, I know the bottom's mounted correctly, and I'm 99.9% sure the top is. So yeah, the bottom is definitely. So I'll just go over and make sure that the spacers are free and everything's doing what it's supposed to do there. But that's basically it. You got your preload here. You turn that dial. You can loosen that nut and then spin this, although you'd probably have to, again, take the muffler off to get a wrench in there, get a spanner in there. But you can adjust the ride height, so I'll leave that up to Kent if he thinks it needs it. Without a steering damper, I don't know that I'd sharpen the steering up more, but we'll leave it up to the expert. I was hoping to get it done tomorrow, but he'll be at Road Atlanta. He's commissioned for the day to work with one of the Moto America teams doing some testing, so I'll be up at his shop on Saturday. We'll get some video on the ride up, what he's doing, and then the ride back, and we'll give a review. So that's the model, the 924. I just wanted something that was a direct replacement for those, you know, crappy stock shocks that have very little damping. And it's not to say, oh, it's a crap bike or it doesn't have good suspension. It's okay. If you're a smaller guy, if you weren't 6'4" and 250 in gear with like me, and you're just out riding the bike around normally, you'd think it was fine. When you're as big as me, which is, you know, I'm not a small rider, I'm probably closer to the weight of what they would anticipate, you know, a smaller average 155, 160 pound guy, you know, with his girlfriend on the back. Well, those two combined are almost me. So it's really not sprung for that, and doing it, you know, if you want to ride it like that, you know, it wallows a little bit. It runs out of a damping and stuff like that. So went with the Ohlins, around 7 something or whatever a set. Yeah, so I'm going to get out of the wheel chock and bounce on it and try to at least get a sort of baseline. Try to set it for 35 mils of sag with rider sag. I'll bar park it as close as I can. That'll get me up to GMD CompuTrack and let them do the rest. So hope this helps. If anyone knows, you know, wants to know, you know, how to change a shock, it really is easy. 2 bolts take the muffler off on each side, so that's 4 bolts, and then it's a bolt and a nut on the bottom. The biggest thing is really just making sure the bike is well supported. It's in a front stand. It's not going to tip over, and then you got to lift it very carefully with a board. Again, cannot stress that enough. Do not put your jack under the damn oil sump. That would be bad. You put a 2x4 or a piece of board over there so that it lays flat, and all the pressure from that small amount of the jack is evenly dispersed over that entire rectangle. So, and that's all you got to do. You lift it up, and there you have it. So if you've got any questions, throw them in the comments. Like I said, this will be sped up, so a lot of it's just going to be me cursing at 16 times speed or something. And it looks like Sarah's here, so I finished just in time. Anyway, talk to you.